Well, hello everyone. This is your favorite doctor, Dr. Mylan here, and I'm keeping my promise and recording this. I know it's a little bit later than anticipated. However, trying to keep up with everything in our classroom as well as our continual efforts here to give you a quality education as we're going along the way, shall we say. This is what should have been presented during week one. I'm giving you an opportunity to review this and take a look at it as we're moving along throughout the semester. This way, at least you have an opportunity to review it. You get a few ideas of what was in the first few chapters, and then we can move forward with our other subsequent chapters and our other lessons. So I'm not going to disappoint any of you. So I'm just letting you know that the Dunkin' Donuts has arrived, yes, and it's very good. So I'll be sipping on this as we're going along, like now, to let you know that, yes, it is still here and I'm still using that, even though this is not, quote-unquote, a live broadcast, if you will. But we're going to take a look today at a couple things in regards to healthcare systems as well as our diseases and some emergent diseases too, and perhaps how to mitigate some of those circumstances along the way. So for the next 7 hours, I will be sitting here lecturing you and giving you all the PowerPoints that you need to know. Just kidding. Next 45 minutes or so, we'll give you, just like we normally do for class, and give you an idea, just a general idea of some of the things that are out there, some of the things that have been going on in healthcare, as well as producing some of the healthcare institutions, policies, and procedures, perhaps, and leading us into the subsequent chapters that we have. So, without further ado, we will get started here, and we will take a look at what we have to offer here. So chapter 1, just giving you a brief overview and a brief introduction of things, shall we say. And in this introduction, we are going to take a look at our healthcare system and health organizations here. We'll take a look at some of the building blocks and some of the foundations of healthcare. Healthy People 2020 goals, well, that's pretty much just around the corner here. And then, of course, we'll take a look at our health systems within a larger social system. And then we'll kind of wrap things up with chapter 1, and then we'll jump into chapter 2 immediately. Now, again, my premise is that there are a lot of slides that we're going to go through. I just don't have the time to get through about 75 slides in 45 or 50 minutes. It's just not going to happen unless I talk rapidly and you won't understand a thing. I will have these posted. I will get these up for you, and these will be available to you immediately once this recording is up and running. And I'll provide the link to you as well. So you have to ask yourself, what is a healthcare system? And some people are going to have one definition. We're going to have another definition of a healthcare system, but it all comes into play where everyone has a different perspective on a healthcare system and what it entails. For the purposes of our studies, what we're going to be looking at here are defining the total organization, institutions, as well as some of the resources that are going to be utilized. And the primary purpose going to be, obviously, is to improve the health of our patients and improve the health of ourselves as well, because we need to take care of those patients. And we'll look at some of the required components over here in dealing with the healthcare systems of the future. Other things, we will take a look at the definition of health. So how do you define health? Well, to me, health is going to be how basically we feel and how we go about our daily lives and how we're going to feel at the end of the day. We can sense a difference when we exercise or have some form of physical activity that's out there, and we like to get involved in things. We like to do things, and we like to feel good, and we like to present ourselves, hopefully, in a positive manner out there, where we're very kempt and we're very sharp looking, and dapper, just like your professor. Just remember that. All of you who are looking for A's in this class, yes, your professor is dapper, isn't he? Well, okay, you can reserve your opinion. Anyway, but you understand my concept here. And what is a system? How do we define a system? Well, a system that can be an organization, a system can be something technological, and a system can truly be something that we're looking forward to in defining along the way. Now, the system can be based on our mission and vision statements. It can be something that we're within the hospital system or Franciscan Alliance system, which is what I always like to use as my personal example. But it's going to depend. It will depend on what's going to be out there in handling some of these situations. Looking at our input. What is input? Is that something we just take the plug-in and we just place it into the wall? Or we're trying to plug our video cameras up and our telephones and things? No, that's not exactly what we're looking at. Input is what we're putting into this system. So this here is basically going to lead you into here, and this is going to lead you back into here. So they're both kind of connected with one another. My favorite area that I like to deal with is dealing with these areas down here. Okay, and that's understanding the diplomatic relations and understanding the social, cultural, and political norms. We all know that politics is going to play a major role in our organization, whether it's going to be the best organization we feel within our area, or if it's going to be something where we have rooms for opportunities to improve. These are some things that we need to take into consideration. But we need to look at as well are the social, cultural, and economic contexts. 565, our HCM 565 course is definitely dealing with economics and finances. You'll just love it once you get inside there. But the economic context here are obviously dealing with how much we are getting in as far as our patients and what I refer to as heads and beds, and how much is getting paid for that. Economically, we're looking at how well the state is doing, or perhaps how well the country is doing, and that's going to make another impact upon how well our organization is going to function. Our social norms of what's going on out there in our areas, what's going on in our communities, that's part of the social norm as well as the culture. Now, the culture does not have to deal specifically with it being in a specific culture. We are looking at the culture aspects of the organization. What is the culture within the organization? How is that organization performing? What are some of the benefits from that organization? What other areas do we have that are beneficial to us that can promote a positive working environment? And that, in turn, is going to provide us with some good background for our patients. Our patients are going to see that we like working alongside one another, that we have a good attitude, and our patients, believe it or not, as miserable as they may feel, they're going to feel better too about themselves because they see that people are working alongside one another rather than against one another in our cultural context and our cultural norms. And keep that in mind as we move forward. So our health system. Our health system is basically a structure defined by the parts and processes. What is going to occur within this system? How are the parts going to be defined? Who are the major stakeholders? Who are the ones that are involved? Who is the executive team? What are they expecting of us? How is this process going to work? And then you look at your generalizations of reality. We all have visions of grandeur, and we feel that things are working just fine and just well. And then we turn around and say, oh, the reality is that while some of our financial assets here within the facility could use some perking up and could use some other challenges, perhaps, in order to raise the bar up just a little bit. So keep that in mind, too. Some things that we need to look at are materials, our human resources, and our finances. We already discussed our finances over here as such. We already discussed that. But in looking at human resources, that one I really like because the human touch as we know it is kind of disappearing. We all know technology is taking over. Let's face it. Our nurses and doctors and things are charting, and there's more technology that's involved. And looking at the technology that we're using, there's a little less patient focus, and there's more time dedicated to trying to figure out how to use that technology to take care of those patients, or to perhaps use a Pyxis machine in order to provide our patients the medications and such that they need, and the medications that they need to have implemented. So that's part of the human resources. But again, human resources too, if we take a look back at this, human resources are the ones, and they are the ones who are looking out for our benefit. They are the ones that are looking out for our hospital. They are the ones that are hiring or firing, in some cases, some of the great people and some of the bad apples that may have tried to spoil the bunch along the way. So human resources may be friend or foe, but I look at it as in a positive light, because human resources are there for kind of our overall defense within our organizations. And then are causing change in some way. I mentioned that a little bit before, and that was dealing with a positive social change in the organization. If it's going to be switching of personnel, if there's a new executive team member, if there's going to be new technology that's going to be brought forward, then why not? Why not use this and help out our patients as well as ourselves when we need to help our patients? And then various parts have the functionality as well as structural relationships. We need to know that relationships are going to work, and we're going to have to work alongside one another in order to have a good working environment, and the best environment for our patients, or for the people that perhaps are in the organization and maybe not dealing with patients directly, but within that particular department. Having a well-functioning department, common sense, you know that this is supposed to work as a unit. And then building the structural relationships, that can be done with third parties. You may have vendors that come in from the outside that are going to promote their particular machine for scanning or for cancer research or whatever it may be. But you need to realize that forming these relationships is a sense of networking, a sense of accomplishment, and a sense of direction that the organization is eventually going to need, due to the fact that they're not a standalone organization. Even if you have, let's say you do have 13 hospitals that may be located throughout various parts of, for example, Northwest Indiana, that's okay, but you still need to work alongside other hospitals and figure out what they may have that is working well and pertaining to your area where it might not be working so well. So these are some tricky areas, even though there's friendly competition and some not so friendly competition for hospitals, clinics, and organizations. Building relationships is very important, because they need to know whether or not things are moving in a positive direction, even in their area. Yeah, she makes some awesome tea. I just love that tea. Other things. Well, we just talked about patients right here, so that's part of it. And then the input that we have is having our patients present a variety of symptoms and injuries. Not everybody's going to come into this area with the common cold. We understand that. We know that. Not everybody's going to be feeling the same way. We're going to have a myriad of characteristics and a myriad of symptoms and signs that are going to be presented to us, and we're going to have to understand that. Now, it's going to depend, those are my favorite words, on the disease, on the injuries, and then we're going to have to figure out how the system is going to characterize it, how the system is going to assess it, and how the system is going to work for that particular patient. Looking a little bit further here, we discussed a little bit about the cultural and the political areas here, as well as the economic context. But we have to look in our communities at the diversity and the size of our communities and the demographics that are going to be coming into our area. I'll use my hospital as an example once again. We at Franciscan Alliance had an opportunity to serve the underprivileged and underserved, and also the moms that were just starting out that unfortunately were having a rough time, whether it's going to be being kicked out of their homes or whether it was going to be drug and alcohol abuse or other issues. We were considerably dealing with the underprivileged and underserved within our community. As a result, we had a different scope. We were focusing on nonprofit. We were focusing on assisting people and providing things. And this was a Catholic institution as well. So you can well imagine that our values and our beliefs were founded in Catholicism, and also following through with what some of the policies and procedures were being written as we were there. So not only did we have a foundation, but we also had an outreach, and we understood that. This goes back to, where did I go? Oh, I almost marked it out and deleted it. But yeah, it goes back to this economic context over here, that once the foundation is there, it's okay, but then you also have to realize that we're outputting and outsourcing monies, and we have to rely heavily upon the federal government and state government to provide us with our funding and receive what we refer to as DISH. And I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it was a very significant amount of money based on our charitable contributions to the community as well as the surrounding areas. And then we're looking at the outcomes of everything. And you're saying, well, how bad can this be? Well, the outcome can be pretty bad due to the fact that the outcome may be negative in some areas and maybe positive in some areas. And the reason why this can be that way is because much of what we've done before may not come to light right away. And it might take a little while for communities as well as other organizations to see what the benefits were and how we were going about doing things. So yeah, outcomes are going to vary considerably against the amount of monies and amounts of contributions that you're going to put into that particular system there. And that's pretty much standard. Our building blocks. So there's a foundation that's laid for the health systems and our health care, but we also have to take a look at the building blocks and how those building blocks are going to be conveyed. So there's a couple of success factors regarding our health system for those building blocks. We're looking at service delivery, health workforce, and of course health information. Service delivery here, the first one, that one is going to tell us completely that we have a good service or that we have some rooms for opportunities within that service. And if that service is going to be delayed or if it's going to be belabored, then those are some of the situations and things that we're going to have to consider along the way. Also, our health workforce then, are we dealing with the aged and elderly? Are we dealing with what I refer to as the seasoned veterans that are there in the workforce, or do we have a younger workforce that's working within our confines for assisting people? If that's the case, we also have to understand there may be some financial disparity. There may be some changes that are going to go on in the workforce, because sometimes the aged or seasoned veterans are not exactly willing to change with the times because they're set in their ways and they're ready to go perhaps and retire. But we need to understand that a health workforce such as this, it can be on different ends of the spectrum. So it can be up, it can be down. And it can lead to some confusion at times, because we understand that the older generation perhaps does not want to take orders from those that are in the younger generation, and it may be difficult, especially when the workforce, let's say you have somebody that's going to be 65 years of age or maybe older, then you're going to be taking orders from a 23-year-old that might be fresh out of school and is in a supervisory position by chance. It makes it hard to swallow at times, and very very cumbersome and very difficult. Now, health information, that can go into various aspects. Excuse me. Health information, it could be the information that we're providing to our patients. It can be the information that we're providing to staff. It could be information that we're providing to the general public. But health information and health information technology are two areas that are expounding and growing leaps and bounds, as we all know. And that's due to the fact that things are changing constantly regarding the workforce, regarding technology. Something is changing in the technology every 3 months now. I can recall a professor that gave a good lecture, and he was a guest speaker at one of the graduations that we had, and he made the comment. He said point blank, the smartphones and the information that you have today that is in your hand will be outdated in 6 months. And something's going to be changing every 6 months. And I'm going back many years now, perhaps a decade or more. And now we begin to see that. And now it's down to 3 months because things are changing so rapidly and people are getting more ideas, more technology. People are savvy to be able to contact people from across the globe and being able to identify their signs and symptoms and health information, different formats, different types of charting, et cetera, et cetera. These are the things that health information is bringing to light. So it's a changing dynamic world out there, especially in the world of healthcare. Don't blink because you might miss something. That's how fast it's changing. In looking at our further building blocks here, critical success factors, again, we're looking at medical technology. We touched on that a little bit. Medical technology is fast and furious. It's helping us, it's assisting our patients, it's assisting our daily needs and our daily activities as well as other things. But to keep in mind here too that the medical technology can be detrimental too because it can pull away from patient contact. It can pull away from patient care. We did talk about healthcare financing. Now, healthcare financing can come in a little bit of different forms too. We can look at medical insurances, or we can look at the finances that are coming into the facility, as well as going out of the facility too. So that's going to take a combination of these two down here, leadership and governance. The leadership and governance, you have good leadership, you have quality leadership, you will have a good organization. It's common sense. We know that. So my 80s moment, so there you go. You have good leadership, you have good governance, etc. Bad leadership will lead to bad governance and a lot of pitfalls and shortcomings that will need to be taken care of in the near future in order for survival rates to take over. Next building block that we have will be measuring the healthcare system here, and you can see that we have a list of things here for as far as cost is concerned. So, cost. What's it cost to run that facility or have patients, or what types of MRI machines are we going to need demographically here? What's going to be included? Excuse me. What's going to be included? How are these things going to be developed, etc.? What quality is out there? Now, quality can lead to the quality of the patient, it can lead to the quality of the workers, or it can lead to the quality of the types of machines and the devices that we have so prolifically purchased. Are they functioning? What's working well? Who do we look to? How is it going to benefit the patients in the long run? How's it going to benefit our organization in the long run as well? Having access to this healthcare as well is something we need to look at. We take it for granted, at least I do, that my hospital is only perhaps 3.7 miles away and I can be at that hospital in an instant and no issue. I have EMS, emergency medical services, that are relatively close, 1.5 miles from where I live too, and I take it for granted. Okay, I have it, it's accessible, and it will be here. Now, there's a lot of places that don't have this type of access and don't know what to do in the event that something happens. How many times have I seen on TV with some of these instances where disasters occur, where a lot of these family members and a lot of these families are in the middle of nowhere, and it takes them perhaps hours or even a day to come to the hospital and hopefully get treatment. That's an access issue. Innovation is going to fall under creativity and, excuse me, extremely dry throat today. Innovation will fall under creativity, technology, and our own thoughts and ideas. Who would imagine that? Our own thoughts and ideas might actually come into play and try and benefit somebody in the long run. But yes, innovation will lead the organization forward, and sometimes it might take training, education, development, and perhaps a year and maybe more. It just depends on the organization. It just depends who's going to be leading the executive staff and how we're going to get along with one another internally in order to promote this innovation and move the organization forward and help our patients. Now, some areas here, just to give you a general idea. Now, these are larger social systems. So in 2013, Helsinki Conference, the WHO, and I don't mean Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend from the 1960s, the rock group The Who, talking about the World Health Organization, who adopted and began to promulgate a health in all policies approach. We can see the benefits of the World Health Organization and how they promoted this in being able to identify some of the main thoughts and ideas to get policies together, as well as basically a behavioral model for promoting populations. There we go. Finally came out, but promoting populations that perhaps are lacking the accessibility that we just talked about. We're also looking at how the World Health Organization can monitor diseases, viruses, put out a global warning in the event that something is really nasty out there, etc. A specific model that falls underneath some of these larger social systems is the Anderson model. This is looking at the behavioral model for vulnerable populations. This is probably providing an in-depth analysis as well in predisposing, enabling, and the needs factors for this type of model. So a lot of functionality, a lot of things going on within that system. Okay, video's back. Very good. Within larger social systems, we have to take a look at our sets of circumstances. We talked a little bit about the social circumstances. Now we're looking at a couple different areas here. We're looking at behavioral health systems. We're looking at the material systems, as well as the psychosocial systems. I'm not going to elaborate on them too much, but I just want to let you know that they're out there. The behavioral systems, you have behavioral health in dealing with a lot of the behavioral health issues that youngsters as well as the elderly are experiencing, the materials that are going to be used in the systems, how they're going to be dedicated, what they're going to be looking for, etc., as far as making business function very, very well. And then, of course, our last one there are psychosocial. How are our reactions going to be indicated? What are we going to be dealing with? Who are our patients going to be? How are they going to adapt to a lot of the changes that are going to be taking place? So these are three areas that are within a larger system. Our Healthy People 2020 goals here, we know that it's just around the corner, 3 months away at this point, but it includes different types of detriment of health. So we're looking at biology and genetics. We're looking at individual behavior here, talking about alcohol use, drug use, unprotected sex, and smoking. So a lot of the nasty stuff is underneath this as well. And then we're looking at the overall social environment. The social environment meaning discrimination, income, education, and gender. And then we have one of my favorite areas, policy making, trying to improve the living conditions for the health services in general. And then once again, that favorite word of mine, access. Access to health care, but more importantly, access to quality health care. And that's what we need to look at too. So just to wrap up Chapter 1 very quickly here, a lot of the things that we covered, we look at accepting many variations of health systems. The definitions of a health system can be varied. Some of the challenges and changes by economics. Economics, as we all know, is going to drive this forward, as well as perhaps being not so nice as far as pressure is concerned in dealing with a lot of the monetary mechanics within an organization. Social detriments, that'll be dealing with your health, how it's going to shape demands, the range of options that are going to be available, etc. And then with a growing population, the demands are going to be a little bit more stressful on the system, as well as identifying some of the goals and objectives that need to be looked at. So a good mission statement and a good vision statement are two of the quality indicators for an organization, and also being able to identify what is going to be done in the future, being a visionary as an executive leader and working alongside your personnel. Those are important characteristics that need to be identified as you move forward. So world leaders adopted some of the developmental goals. So some of them were here. So looking at 17 sustainable development goals. For example, you have end poverty, promote well-being, as well as protect the planet. Goal number 3 out of these sustainable goals is focusing on health and calls for a dramatic inspiration for achievements, and that is in itself is something that needs to be looked at in depth, because you have somebody that's inspired and somebody that believes in something, perhaps much like the World Health Organization. It becomes a lot easier to identify some of the diseases and viruses and issues that may be occurring, and then being able to say, okay, yeah, we need to get this out there. I'll take care of this situation, and I will help everyone that I can along the way in order to market this as well as promote it to alert people that this is going on. So those are some of the inspiring achievements for personnel. And then finally, the goals are requiring greater investment and gain more effectiveness. So it's okay to have an immediate goal, but your long-term goals are going to be important as well. Your long-term goals need to reflect your vision and mission, and also being able to be a visionary. I can't express to you enough how important it is to be a visionary, be able to foresee things that are going to occur, or perhaps you feel are going to occur, and mitigate those circumstances immediately. So those are some of the the sustainable goals there. Okay, moving right along, we're getting into chapter 2. I'm going to touch on a few things here just a little bit. And chapter 2, by the way, is brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts, Dr. Mylan's elixir of life. Send him one from across the pond today. So, moving forward, we're going to take a look here at some global issues. We'll look at global health and disease here. So, in as such, just a brief introduction here. We'll take a look at what the burden of disease is, some of the non-communicable diseases, infectious diseases, some of the things that might impact us in the future, public health and healthcare strategies, and then finally we'll wrap up things. I don't think we're going to have time for all of this in here, but I think we should be able to touch some of these things right here and give you a general idea. Again, these PowerPoint slides are going to be posted for you very soon. So in looking at healthcare, we touched on a few things already in chapter 1, and this was dealing with our development and management. How we develop our image, or develop ourselves, the organization, will be a direct reflection on how we're going to get patients into that organization, and then how management is going to look at us favorably, or perhaps looking at us unfavorably if we haven't been doing what we're supposed to do. Understanding the environment is a big deal, and I don't mean that the weather outside is dry and arid and 90 degrees today. We're not looking at that. What we're looking at is the actual environment that is going to be in our hospital, for example. So we have to understand what the social and cultural beliefs are, as well as the religious beliefs. And that has to be out of the utmost respect. A good facility or organization will be able to do so and be able to care for those patients with special needs, for example, as well as being able to utilize good communication skills and being able to identify with those patients rather than having the patients be afraid at that time. The physical environment, well, looking around the building. Is it dirty? Is it filthy? Are there a lot of biohazard bags that are laying around in the hallway? Are there too many beds that are left unavailable and unkempt, et cetera, et cetera? That can have a lot to do with the environment that you're working in. And then finally, like what we mentioned earlier before, in dealing with the political environment. The political environment is always, always, always going to be present, regardless of if you're in politics or whether you're going to be dealing with your patients and dealing with specific doctors and locations. It's always going to be present in our organizations. Good, bad, or indifferent, I just want to let you be aware of those certain sets of circumstances. Looking at economic development, I kind of think we touched on this one already, same as the social structures. But then we have to take a look at the types of diseases that are going to be present within the population. The diseases are going to vary from location to location, as well as trying to have people understand that perhaps they need to be vaccinated against a certain disease rather than remaining in the population and spreading that. So diseases that, you might have Ebola, for example, in Africa, or you might have measles that are starting to spread, God forbid, here in the United States. Oh, I can't even think of that. But it's going to depend on the region, it's going to depend on the types of healthcare that's made available, etc. And that goes back to one of our slides before, dealing with accessibility, having that accessibility to healthcare. If you don't have access to healthcare, or if you're unknowledgeable about some of the opportunities that are out there for healthcare, then you have different sets of circumstances, as well as different positions in dealing with your healthcare overall. Again, there's going to be an influence of population health needs. It depends. My two favorite words, it depends. It depends where it's located, depends on how it's going to work and function, et cetera, et cetera. And this distribution here is definitely going to either make or break what's going to happen out there in the field. So distribution of medical resources, that could be either near or that could be very far away, and trying to go out there and reach for people who are definitely in need. And then whatever provisions that are going to be made for or of health services. What types of medications, what types of financial resources are going to be placed out there, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot that are going to be involved for the provision of your healthcare services. Some of the demands that you have out there, and we'll take a look at these very briefly here. You have the first one here. You have disease prevention, your primary treatment, secondary treatment, and then tertiary. Primary being 1, secondary again obviously being 2, and tertiary being your third area. That is just a really bad number 3 that I just drew there. Don't you all agree? Don't say it, but you can think it. Yes, at least I'm trying. But these are the 4 areas that we need to consider when you're with the demands on the healthcare system. So the integration of healthcare system with public health. Public health is not the only location that is out there. It's not the only place that is taking place. It's a little bit a little bit different, and it's a little bit more coordinated, a little bit more communication needs to be going on. You have a hospital, that's fine, but you also have the public health department that may be located outside of the hospital. You need to get together and communicate and coordinate and collaborate with one another. Now, the public health system responsibilities, my two favorite words, it depends. So we'll just call it I and D. It depends. But it depends on the system that you're going to be working in. It depends on your department, depends on your environment, depends on your demographics, depends on the culture, yada, yada, yada. You could go on and to discuss this. But the main thing to understand is that the public health system are going to have multiple responsibilities. It will depend on the location as well as those that are going to be within that environment. Burden of disease. Yeah, burden can be the great descriptor of diseases that are happening out there, but we also have to look at the following areas when dealing with disease. So number one here, take for example, you have prevalence. How prevalent is it? Is it great and grandiose, or is it just going to be in a small area? The incident rates, with frequency. How often is this occurring? Where is this occurring? What are some of the specific areas, etc.? And is this disease going to be linked to undesignated mortality? Is that rate going to be high? Is it going to be low? And that's kind of dovetail into here with this case fatality, and that leads into your mortality rates, and once that's done, it goes way back up over to here, and you have completed basically the cycle. And it is a cycle, because once that disease is done, perhaps cured, then it's moving into the next phase or the next cycle that may take place. Furthermore, you do have the reporting. Once you have that disease, and in the previous slide here, we were talking about mortality rates, etc., and the burden of disease and measuring that disease. Now we're kind of taking a look at the actual reporting of that disease. So disability adjusted life years. So that's going to come into play, as well as the quality adjusted life years, another great acronym. The health expectancy of that person based on that particular disease, healthy life years after this disease has occurred and taken place, and then what is going to happen once there is a cost-benefit analysis that is taking place. A lot of things are being involved in these areas, and a lot of things that are dealing with the life years, the health expectancy, and determining what the actual costs are going to be associated with that particular disease. Again, we're starting up at the top with a certain measure and things. So if we're starting here, then we're working our way down, but then it comes right back up to the top. So it's almost a complete circle when you're dealing with the actual reporting of that particular disease. Okay. So a couple areas to consider here. You're looking at the effective measurement on a proportionment of the health resources that can be made available. So that needs to be into your cachet of things as well. And then the difficulties that are going to be associated with collecting health statistics. You're asking yourself, how do you collect the health statistics? Well, you have to perform research. You have to figure out what's going on applicably with that disease or that virus, the location, the demographics, the making contacts, getting people together, working alongside one another, etc., etc. It is a difficult process. It can be a difficult task, but it needs to be done in an effort to understand what may be going on with that particular virus or disease, and also providing information to people that are definitely in need. I won't go over each and every one of these because they're numerous. Obviously, you have 10, but these are the top 10 leading causes of non-communicable diseases, meaning that perhaps it's through inheritance. Heart disease, cerebral vascular disease, respiratory infections, chronic pulmonary respiratory tract infections, etc., etc. So these are going to be the non-communicable diseases that are out there. Emergence of the non-communicable diseases, well, these right here are definitely the main ones we can see: heart disease, stroke, and cancer. We are continually looking at how heart disease is occurring here in the United States. It's an alarming rate. Stroke as well. I think much has to deal with the stroke, and I'm being very respectful, is the fact that we are just stressed out and overworked. And that's part of the problem that happens. We are just so pressurized in our daily lives. Cancer, well, it can go through inheritance, and it also can be through just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Perhaps you're located near a factory or something that's belching out filth and silt and gunk into the air, and whatever's in that smoke and things, that's making an impact upon your life negatively. Negatively. Yes, that's a new word from Dr. Milan. Negatively, of course. Also, respiratory diseases. I mean, I just, out of curiosity, how many of you have seen respiratory therapists that are out there smoking cigarettes on breaks? I think almost every respiratory therapist has been out there trying to smoke a cigarette on a break with perhaps just give them an oxygen tank nearby as well. I don't know. I don't get it. When I used to work at the hospital, it used to amaze me to see that they were underneath the canopy, hiding in the wind, out from the rain, out from the snow and elements, even though it was freezing outside. There they are. They're smoking. So don't you work on the respiratory floor? Yeah, I'm just out here for my break. Alrighty then. Also, I have the characteristics for mental illness or behavioral health, as it's so-called today. Diabetes, again, is on the rise. I think diabetes is out there due to the fact we have so many fast foods and fatty foods and things. And again, this is something that's perhaps as of inheritance. We can see that there's an increasing impact, and that's the sad thing here. So you have an increasing impact on worldwide mortality. So the differences between the communicable and non-communicable diseases, it's going to basically depend. And the World Health Organization, they're going to be able to project what's coming, hopefully, in an expeditious manner. So again, it goes back to some of the risk factors for the non-communicable diseases. We're talking the type of lifestyle, and then we're talking, again, there you go, the top thing with dealing the environment, and as well as what the body is going to consume on a daily basis. So that's going to provide you with a disease or something that can be identified as a disease based on these two areas of lifestyle and the environment. Okay? Cardiovascular disease falls underneath these categories here. Atherosclerotic disease, there you go, and non-atherosclerotic disease. Try to say that 10 times real fast. I dare you to. So these fall underneath cardiovascular disease, two categories and two forms of this particular heart disease. The non-communicable diseases with the cardiovascular disease types, there's the main word here, types, we're looking at the coronary artery, and then a heart attack, congenital heart disease, aneurysm, heart failure, high blood pressure, stroke, and then the last one, arrhythmias. Again, it looks like it's going to depend on location, lifestyle, etc. But be aware that these are all associated with a non-communicable disease, more specifically dealing with the cardiovascular disease types. Cancer, what are the risk factors? What are some of the issues surrounding cancer? Well, depends on the lifestyle, depends on your family genes and such. That has a lot to do with it, and then perhaps what the environment is around you. If you happen to live in an area that's heavily polluted or that may be on a landfill site, probably the risk factor is going to be quite high when dealing with cancer here, okay? Now, preventing that, I would suggest not living in that area if you possibly could. However, there are going to be circumstances that are not going to be allowing you to be perhaps moving from that environment, unfortunately. But you need to understand that there are risk factors associated not only with genes, but also with that particular environment that you're with. Well, I'm going to have to stop here, and due to the fact that we are getting very close to time. But let me very quickly go over this in dealing with the cancer risk. We did talk about age. It's going to take a little bit while for this to develop and sustain, and then you're going to have a certain lifestyle, and that's what's going to indicate some of these healthy choices or not so healthy choices. Your family history, we talked about the genes, and here's an interesting fact: 10% of the cancer risk is going to be due to an inherited condition. The other health conditions, they may be chronic health conditions that are going to exist, and that is going to obviously drive the risk up as well. So your main factors that you could see here that I want you to take away will be dealing with the age, the lifestyle, the family history, and the health conditions that may be associated with it. Okay? Well, with that, we are coming close to time, and at time, I do thank you for participating in this and taking a look at it. Hopefully you looked at it. If not, pass it along to your friends. Those of you who have watched this and have been dazzled by Dr. Milan once again, I am here. I am here for you. But seriously, remember your postings on the discussion boards. Be sure that they are substantive in your initial posting. Make sure it's on time. And also make sure you're saying something more than, thanks, nice post. Thank you, Dr. David. I greatly appreciate your thoughts. Okay, I'm glad you do. Now I'll elaborate on that just a little bit more, and you should be fine. 3 to 5 sentences in length is what I'm looking for, but give me something very tangible that will work well in your discussion postings. Okay. So with that, I bid you adieu for this session. We'll have the rest of our sessions throughout the term here, the semester, and those have been posted in the announcement as well. Hope you learned a little bit about our communicable diseases, non-communicable diseases, some of the things at the basic foundations in our systems within our healthcare area, and I'm looking forward to working alongside you here in the next several weeks. So bye for now, and hope you're all doing well.